I'd like to call the regular City Commission meeting of Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019 to order and ask all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our approval of the agenda. There are copies of the agenda available at the back of the commission chamber, as well as on the recorder's desk. Who is recording?
The cable guys.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of this evening's agenda as presented.
Report.
I will second it.
Got that already over there.
Sorry about that.
Oh, sorry.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the regular commission minutes of April 2nd. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I should note that Commissioner Olsman is absent this evening and he is excused. Moving on, I don't believe we had any communications. We do have our County Commissioner, Commissioner Zach here.
Good evening, everybody. So I've had measles on the mind. The good news is that we have a wonderful Oakland County Health Department, and they have been extraordinary and gone above and beyond to try and arrest this measles outbreak in our area. And they have, as of last week, I don't have any update, given over 2,000, like 2,300 vaccinations for measles in just a couple-week period. And they were wonderful. They went into different synagogues. They were going into people's homes, taking swabbing. They went into Jewish Senior Life on 10 Mile, wherever we asked them to go just to contain this. And they've been, they worked in partnership with an emergency response group within the Jewish community called Hatzalah. And our health department is literally getting calls from across the country because of what an extraordinary job they've done. There was a beautiful article in the Washington Post that cited what we've done around here. And so, I'm going to actually do a proclamation commending them. And what they said to me is that we couldn't have done it without our community partner, Hatzalah, and we want to be honored with them. And so it's really wonderful for all of us to know that we have such a responsive public health department. Last week we had the opportunity of passing a resolution creating Oakland County as a welcoming county, and it was a statement, but I really heard some heartfelt stories from people who are children of immigrants or immigrants themselves, and being a welcoming county. It was very moving. I do want to remind people about an award-winning program that our county clerk offers our residents. It's where you can register your property under deeds and get alerts. There's been a lot of different fraud situations, and so to go under OCMyDeeds.com, you can register your home, and if someone's trying to make some type of claim, you will get an alert, and it's trying to stop the fraud that happened several years ago. Long discussion on our 911 service charges. We had a lengthy discussion at our April 10th Finance Committee, and it's a prelude, and it's going to go through the county commission process. We are going to ask for a 6 cents per phone line increase. and it's going from 36 cents up to 42 cents per landline. This is our 911. And this is the maximum that we can approve without going to a vote of the people. And let me explain, I don't do this lightly, but I've been talking about the last couple of years, we've been switching over our whole system of delivery. Originally, we used the copper landlines, the telephone lines, and they worked for many, many years, but we need to move into a whole different type of technology where you can text pictures, things like that. It's old school technology. So there is money set aside to start with this, but all the equipment costs, it's millions of dollars. We still don't have a commitment from the state yet as to what they're going to pay. So we do need to leverage the maximum amount, and to be continued. Will we have to bond this at some future point? We really don't know, particularly until the state comes forward and says, what are they going to, subsidize? Along with the same economic issues, at the April 10th Finance Committee, if you go to www.oakgov.com, we have a deputy county exec named Bob Dado, and he really is a brilliant accountant, municipal finance person. And I remember 10 years ago, around 2008, him giving us an overall environmental forecast of what's out there around us. So this is 10 years later. He did a similar but different presentation, and it was more condensed, as I asked him, talking about what are the environmental factors around us impacting financial forecasting. And we're not just talking Michigan, we're talking global. And if people are interested, they can go under the Board of Commissioners part of the Oakland County website and go into the agenda on, for April 10th, punch on and listen to Bob Dado's presentation on the economic forecast. I think it is somewhat dry, but it's very informative. See what we're dealing with. Finally, one of the pleasures that I have as finance chair is I serve on the drain board now. And I do want people to be aware, we were one of the communities that was hit by the flood, and I had to vote on, again, approve more legal bills. And I know that there are 10 cities of which Huntington Woods has lawsuits, and so we're paying not only as Oakland County taxpayers for these lawsuits to defend the flood, but we are as city residents too. And I said to people 4 or 5 years ago when they signed on to it, who's paying these legal bills? We are as taxpayers. So it's an unfortunate set of circumstances. The good news is I was told that the court did order mediation, so maybe there will be some end in sight to this process. That's it for tonight. Any questions? Yes.
Just a comment. I'm glad the county signed on to the welcoming communities. One of the problems in southeast Michigan is we do not have population growth. We are dependent on immigrants coming in. And being a welcoming community makes that possible.
Yep.
At the same time, our friendly legislature has come up with some bills which say that if you help immigrants, if you're an elected official that's involved, then the federal government comes first. And it's real scary, so I'm glad that in spite of that, the county did make that position, or at least the
Thank
county
you.
commissioners.
Thank you. No, I thought it was a very positive statement. We heard from the person at Oakland Schools dealing with the immigrant population or newer, foreign speakers, and his own personal experience of going to school and being bullied because he couldn't speak. and just what he does with Oakland County students to make them feel more comfortable. There were a lot of really beautiful stories that I heard, so I'm glad we did it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public participation. Now is the opportunity for anyone from the public who has a question or comment regarding an item that is not on the agenda. Seeing none, public participation is closed, and we're going to move on to our proclamation. We do have a proclamation to make tonight, declaring May as as Motorcycle Awareness Month in the city of Huntington Woods. I see we have someone here from Abate of Michigan. Do you want to say anything prior to the proclamation?
Sure, I'll just introduce myself, if you don't mind. Sure. My name is Peter Cazellas. I'm with Abate of Michigan, and it stands for American Bikers Aiming Toward Education. Basically, I'm here as a representative of my chapter, which is 19, covers Oakland County, requesting the proclamation because our hope and goal is to make motorists more aware of motorcycles. We are trying to prevent accidents and deaths. It not only helps us, but many people, joggers, bicyclists, animals, and kids from being hurt or killed also. So basically, we believe if you start seeing motorcycles, you'll start seeing everything else on the road. So, thank you.
Thank you. Our proclamation reads, whereas the city of Huntington Woods has many citizens who are concerned about motorcycle safety while touring, during recreation, and daily transportation, and whereas the month of May is nationally recognized month for motorcycles become more prevalent on our streets, they need to be more aware of the presence, and being aware of their presence is of the utmost urgency. And whereas due to the Pure Michigan advertising campaign and the modification of the Michigan helmet law, many of our state riders will be visiting, many out-of-state riders will be visiting our state and using our roads. And whereas an overwhelming number of car versus motorcycle accidents could be avoided with due regard, respect, and awareness of motorcycles on the streets and intersections of this city. And whereas the inclusion of motorcycle awareness provided by Abate of Michigan as a distinct part of the driver education curriculum and motorcycle rider education programs will help to promote safe driving and motorcycle practices. Whereas it is the intent of our community and the citizens of the city of Huntington Woods to note the increase in the amount of motorcycle traffic as we enter the warm months to enable the reduction of accidents and injuries involving motorcyclists. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Commission does hereby proclaim the month of May 2019 as Motorcycle Awareness Month in the city of Huntington Woods, proclaimed this 23rd day of April 2019. Okay, moving on to our regular items of business. Item number 1. Matter of consideration of the sewer and road improvement bond authorization.
If this is a resolution that needs to be approved by the city commission in order to go forward with the sale for the bonds for the sewer and road repair program. But we do have a representative from Miller Canfield here if there's any questions about the bond process. This was the bond that was approved by the voters in November, and we are recommending that the entire amount be sold in one session, and that we would do the work over 2 years, possibly into a third year if necessary.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we authorize $7,845,000 for the 2019 sewer and road improvement bonds, unlimited tax general obligation.
Support. Any comments or questions from the public? Comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for attending. Item number 2 is a bid award, matter of accepting and authorizing a contract with Deponio Contracting for the 2019 pavement reconstruction, sewer repair, and sewer replacement project. The amount of $2,205,195.
So this is the bid for the work to be done for the sewer replacement, water main replacement, and the sewer repair program for 2019 and 2020. The low bidder is Deponio Contracting, who's done the work for us last couple of years, at least as long as I've been here. We have a good relationship with them, and we recommend awarding the bid to Deponio.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we award the contract for the 2019-2021 Huntington Woods Bond Program, Year 1, 2019 pavement reconstruction, sewer repair, sewer replacement, and water main replacement project to Deponio Contracting, Inc. of 51173 Simone Industrial Drive, Shelby Township, Michigan, 48316, in the amount of $2,205,195.
Second.
Any public comment or questions? Commission?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Deponio had the lowest bid, and Deponio's had a reputation for at least 25 to 30 years since I worked in the area of highway construction prior to my job here.
Any other? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3 is a matter of setting a date for the city commission to meet in regards to the senior housing work session for May 9th, 2019, 7 p.m. here in the commission chambers.
Yes.
We have a motion.
I'll motion.
Second.
May 9th, 2019, 7 p.m.
Any public comment or questions? Any comments at the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a date set for another meeting. Item number 4 is to a matter of setting the regular meeting of May 7th, 2019, to receive public comment regarding the city's proposed 2019-2020 budget. We have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to set May 7th, 2019 as the public hearing date for the city's proposed 2019-2020 budget.
I'll second it.
Thank you. There are copies of the budget available online on our website. Is there printed copies at the library? There will be. Okay. Any public comment? Hearing none, any comments or questions from the commission? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 is a first reading of the ordinance regarding marijuana and opting out. Do you want to
Sure.
take over that?
When the recreational marijuana initiative passed in November, that gave the cities the opportunity to decide whether or not they wanted to permit marijuana businesses within their community, and if they did not, then they could opt out, and our city attorney is recommending that if a city did decide to opt out, that they do it via an ordinance. So this was discussed by the city commission. They referred it to the planning commission to get feedback on the decision whether to opt in or to permit businesses. Planning commission discussed it in March, and their recommendation to the city commission was that the city do opt out of providing recreational marijuana facilities within Huntington Woods. So the city attorney has drafted the ordinance for you, and this would be the first reading of that ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we need any action on a first reading, but I just did want to make a comment. and that is that, you know, there's no question in my mind that the voters of Huntington Woods supported in the statewide ballot referendum the use of marijuana, the decriminalization of marijuana at the state level. But what was not in that state proposal was whether or not we wanted it sold in our community. And you know, I voted when we had the initial meeting against it being sold in our community. I'm glad to see after several months it is back and being recommended that that's what occur. If you think about it, the commercial property, the majority of commercial property in this city abuts a park. The florist, the collision shop, the dry cleaners, the Rite Aid store, all abut parks where our young folks congregate, and I do not think that it should be sold next to our city parks. And other than the Woodward property, every other commercial parcel, with very, very limited exceptions, abuts a city park. So I think this is the right decision. Folks who want to obtain it can obtain it, sounds like, in Berkeley, which frankly isn't that far. We already have to leave our community to do a number of things, buy groceries, and so this can just be added to the list of things that can be purchased nearby. Okay, so I'm pleased to see, and I appreciate our city attorney's work on this. I think there's also, Mr. Mayor, I think there's a lot that needs to be worked out at the state level. And were we to opt in, I think the financial burden after the state scraped off all of the money they possibly could, what would be left for the opt-in cities for covering the costs of administering this would have been so minimal that I think it also would have placed a financial burden on our city. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment too.
We do need a motion to accept the first reading.
So moved to receive.
I'll second it.
And I'd
Let
like
me
to,
get some public
okay.
participation first. Any comments from the public? Okay, thank you.
I agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation as well. It's such a new law, and there's so much they have to figure out, and we as a city have very limited space. We are still trying to figure that out. We have a study coming up to discuss some of those issues, but with the limited space that we have, I don't think that that's the right use, the type of land use that we should be promoting. There's better options out there for our community. And I do also share the concern about, you know, outside buyers coming into our communities. And a lot of the residential homes are right behind some of the retail spaces that could be used for that kind of sale. So I concur with Commissioner Rosal on that, and thank the Planning Commission for taking a look at it and thinking through it thoroughly. Also like to point out that if, you know, in the future, as we learn about how the state law is being implemented, you do have that opportunity to opt back in, and maybe that's something that we could look at in the future if that is something that the community wants.
Can I add something? I wanted to also tell you that there is a complementary ordinance going through the zoning ordinance that is going to prohibit them. Is it a prohibited use? So it's going to be in two places in our ordinance. The zoning ordinance process is a little lengthier, but eventually that'll go through the public hearing process and they'll make a recommendation. So you'll probably be seeing a second ordinance on the same issue in the future. Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is a matter of introduction, first reading again of an ordinance regarding chickens and the permit to regulate and establish relating to the keeping of chickens.
As I do want to point out that Commissioner Jenks did review the ordinance, found a typo, which we will correct and make sure that that is addressed in the second reading. So that will get taken care of. So this is an ordinance that permits backyard chickens if they meet certain requirements, and it is a pilot program that would be run for 1 year, and a maximum of 3 permits may be issued so that we can get a feel for exactly how it fits in with their community and whether or not there are any additional issues that would need to be addressed if the city decides to move forward with the ordinance.
Do we have a motion?
So move. Now, you want this to be received at this point?
Just a motion
For first reading.
I'd like to move the first reading of the ordinance to amend the city code of the City of Huntington Woods, Chapter 4, to add new Article 3, chickens, to permit, regulate, and establish requirements relating to the keeping of chickens.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any public comments or questions? Please come forward to the microphone.
I would just like to thank all the commissioners for considering my proposal about chickens.
Thank you for your involvement and your education of us. Any comments or questions from the City Commission?
Mr. Mayor, I will admit, initially when this came forward, I did have some concerns, but I, along with some of my colleagues on the commission, did take an opportunity to go out to the city of Berkeley, where a resident there did have backyard chickens, and we were able to see it. I think that we've placed this ordinance in such a way that it's a pilot and that it's regulated and that it requires inspections, it requires neighbors' approval, no different than an air conditioning unit, near the side yard setback of a home. So I think that there are a number of protections in place, and that this is something that we will revisit a year from now and determine if it's something that we want to keep going or decide to discontinue the program at that time.
I'm pleased that the ordinance is here. I never grew up with chickens, but I did grow up with dogs, and I don't remember it being a complicated process. I do know that sometimes my neighbors wanted to kill my dog, and sometimes I wanted to kill my neighbor's dog because it barked a lot sometimes, especially at night when it had to go outside. I do remember that in the middle of the winter, my mother would scream at me, "Open the door so Gigi can go out." I did not get a shovel and go out and pick up whatever Gigi left on the ground. We did not have a rat infestation. I think this is interesting. Hazel Park has had chickens for 50, 60, 70 years. It hasn't created a crisis. I watched the huge citizen concern in Berkeley, and the reality is that that concern sort of dried up. The only thing I'm concerned about is the annual permit and inspection fee of $180. Berkeley, as far as I can see, which does have 2 inspections, has a fee of $85. Hazel Park has no fee. Ferndale has a fee of $35. I don't think chickens and raising chickens is an adult pet activity. I think it's a children's pet activity, and I would prefer that that annual permit and inspection fee be significantly lowered so it was similar to Berkeley. We have a lot of restrictions in there which protect neighbors. You've got to sign on that you agree that chickens can be raised next door in lots that are sometimes 60 feet wide. A 60-foot setback seems very, very difficult, and yet it's also working in Berkeley, so, and I haven't seen huge complaints. So even though that's somewhat restrictive, it works. And the 3 hens, I think, is reasonable, although when we visited Berkeley, they suggested 5 or 6 because then the hens would be happier among themselves. I think the size of 3 permits is reasonable since our neighbors seem to have 5 permits and their cities are substantially larger than ours. And there has been, as far as I can see, no complaint about the 3 permit or the 3 permits or the 5 permits stopping families. I like this ordinance. I think it's different. The only thing is, again, I would hope that we look at the annual permit and inspection fee and lower that from 180 to no more than what I believe Berkeley is charging, which is 85. We have copied a lot of the Berkeley ordinance. Some may look at 180 as being punitive. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? So the fee is actually going to be on the next agenda after assuming that the ordinance gets passed at a second reading. So that would be something that would come up at that time for your approval.
Okay.
And the 180 came up. Berkeley does charge an $80 fee. An inspector goes out to the property twice. So we thought that that was a fair amount of money. And what's added to our ordinance are also 2 inspections by a certified pest control professional. And the estimate for that was $50 per inspection. So that $100 was added to the $80 fee for the building inspector to go out and take a look at it and to make sure that there is not any kind of an issue with rodents.
I think, at least in the Berkeley ordinance, I'm not sure about ours, there was a section that dealt with nuisance. Mm-hmm. And so if you had a problem, deal with the problem. But to assume everybody that is going to have chickens is going to have pests and stuff like that. I started out by speaking about my dogs. Mm-hmm. And the dogs crapped, and we did not necessarily clean up the yards. We saw these little chickens. From what I've read, their poop is more combustible. We are allowing people to be above the ground. We are requiring rat guards and stuff like that. I had to complain about a neighbor that had birds and was pouring birdseed like mad and did create rats. That was a separate matter, and it could be dealt with existing ordinances. So I would hope that if pests have not been a Berkeley issue, have not been a Hazel Park issue, have not been a Ferndale thing, that it looks bad. It becomes hard to explain. Yes, we've added all the costs together, but it becomes hard to explain why we have found a problem that no other city, especially cities that have had chickens for 70 years. Ann Arbor, I couldn't tell if it was 2008 or maybe 1908, but we've got a corrector in the back who will clarify that for me.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't know we were going to go down this animal feces discussion tonight, but I guess what I will say is that we, unlike some of our other communities that have this, we are doing 2 inspections a year, which is part of the reason why I think our fee is higher. And we are using an outside third party to do the inspection, so we're passing that cost along. Certainly never do I want to, whether it's a tax or fee, be punitive, but I have a feeling at a subsequent meeting, the city staff will justify why that proposed fee is at $180. The other thing that I think is most concerning is not the animal itself, but the little, I don't know, I can't remember what you call it, but the little cage it's kept in, or the housing that it's kept, the coop, thank you. That the coop that the chicken is kept in could become unsightly. It could break down if it's not maintained. And so I think that that's really what we're trying to do here, is make sure that this does not become an unsightly situation or unsanitary situation here. So, you know, if the city staff could come up with the supporting documentation for that $180 fee at the subsequent meeting when we're actually asked to approve it, that would be great. I suspect it's because it's 2 inspections and we're using an outside third party. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And I think it is important that we use an outside certified pest control. We may find after the first year that that's an unnecessary
Right.
fee, and we can discontinue that or change it to 1. But in all fairness to the residents of the entire city, I think it's important that we inspect these and maintain, watch it very closely this first year during the trial period. So I'm in favor of the 2 inspections.
Mr. Mayor, I want to support the youth in our community in this opportunity to learn about where their food comes from, how to take care of other beings on this earth, and I think that is a valuable lesson. At the same time, we are not Berkeley, we are not Hazel Park, we are Huntington Woods. So we also have to strike a balance to make sure that we are respectful of our neighbors as well. And I think this ordinance, written as is right now, and hearing the justifications for the $180 being, you know, we're inspecting it twice versus the other communities who only inspect it once, I think that is reasonable in helping us to strike that balance. And keeping in mind that the chicken coop, the backyard that we visited, was being taken care of from a resident that knows everything about backyard chickens, and she's on top of it, and she was very diligent on taking care of the chicken, taking care of the structure, of their food sources. I don't know that every owner will be like that. So I think the twice-a-year enforcement will be helpful to the neighbors that have to live next door to these chickens. But at the same time, again, I think allowing this, you know, permit to happen in our community is also a great learning opportunity for our youth.
Pro Tem.
Just a point of information, Berkeley also has 2 inspections. And the biggest problem with chickens is not the chickens, but the way the food is stored. And that's the same problem we have with bird feeders. We also have it when you pile wood in your backyard to have a wood pile, because those are wonderful nesting places for rats. My concern was we have a whole bunch of rules that are outside of this when you're breeding rats for any reason, where you can virtually be shut down. I believe this ordinance deals with that. The Berkeley ordinance does. But we'll get some more information from the manager.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We'll have a final reading and adoption of the ordinance at our next city commission meeting. Item number 7 is a matter of consideration and adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Huntington Woods Code of Ordinance regarding Val Jones Park to provide penalties for violations thereof.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we adopt an ordinance ordinance, Chapter 26, Parks and Recreation, Section 26 and 27, Val Jones Park, and provide penalties for the violation thereof.
Support.
Any public comment? Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That includes the wording that Commissioner Olsman
Yes.
added to the signage at the last meeting. Item number 8 is a consideration of the adoption of the ordinance to amend the City of Huntington Woods Code of Ordinances regarding telecommunications.
Mr. Mayor, so move.
Second.
Any public comment? Commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And item number 9 relates to the establishing of fees for wireless facilities, wireless support structures, and utility poles in the public right-of-way.
These are the maximum fees that were allowed by the new state law.
We have a motion to approve.
So move with anger.
In protest?
Huh?
In protest?
In protest.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Any comments or questions from the commission? We know you're angry already.
I'm always angry. What can I say? What is extremely disappointing here is the extreme amount of limitations that are placed upon the city as it relates to our use of the right-of-way, as it relates to aesthetics, as it relates to revenue from these items that are being placed all over, as it relates to potential risk from the individual that requested that all the commissioners receive information at the last packet. This is an area where the providers have completely tied our hands at the federal level and at the state level. And we negotiated seriously and in good faith about 10 to 12 years ago for some of this, and it was completely flipped on us. This is something I believe, and council can tell me if I'm wrong, we're asking for maximum amounts, which may be annual fee of $20 for these wireless facilities that may generate thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for the provider. When I was growing up, there used to be a telephone box which was around 20 feet above the surface, and you'd watch the linemen make connections, but it was out of the average visibility. One of the first questions I asked of the city manager early on is, why are there 100 of these little repeaters between here and the next 2 blocks? They are supposed to file with us notice. They don't. And it just goes on and on. This is something we have to do, but I doubt, one, whether these people will report to us. In many instances, there's a third party actually that owns these little facilities that then rents out at a much higher level the space that's there, which we can get nothing on.
Any other comments?
Ready to vote, Mr. Mayor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10 is a selection of a city auditor. We went out to bid on a 3-year contract for a firm to audit our books. And I think I'm going to turn this over to Tim, because I think he did the most research on it.
Yep, so we did, went out for an RFP for an auditor, some questions with the service with our prior auditor. We got 6 responses, and there's a clear top 3. They were reviewed by myself, the deputy finance director, and Joy, our clerk treasurer. And we all give them scores. So we reviewed the top 3, who was going to be assigned to us, and looked into their history. And we came up with Manor Custodian as the top choice. They had the best staff assigned to us and the most detailed proposal.
We have a motion to accept.
So move.
Second that.
Any public comment? Comments or questions from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the city doing this. I think it's very smart to change auditors. You know, not everybody does that. Some governments stick with the same auditor for insanely long time. And if you look at some of the major financial embezzlements and other crises that have occurred in Dixon, Illinois, and other places around the country, it's because auditors have been in places for too long. And, you know, the rule of thumb is 5 years, and so I think it's a wise move to go out to bid. Is there a better price, and bring another new set of eyes in to look at our books. And so I think appreciate all the work that you've done. I think this is a good public policy to do this, and so I fully support it.
Did they give you any idea on timing when they would conduct the audit and when the report would be?
Yeah, so the specifications say it has to be, the report's to be done in November, so it'll always be ready for that first December commission meeting. Which won't be rushing at Christmas anymore.
That would be much appreciated. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11 is a matter of consideration of adopting the 2019-2020 latchkey program fees.
This was an initiative that was kicked off by the Long Range Budget and Planning Committee. The subcommittee taking a look at the library and the recreation services felt that there were some opportunities to have our rates match rates in Royal Oak and Berkeley. And although the recommendation for the long-term budget committee is coming in, will be presented as a package, the budget committee was comfortable with having this go ahead on its own, since it only impacts latchkey users and doesn't impact residents as a whole. And we need to get approval of these new rates in order for material to go out to latchkey users in May for the latchkey program that starts in September. And the budget committee also is recommending kind of a 2-tiered phase-in of rate adjustments, so that you'll see that there are different rates right now. It's a slightly lower rate if you pick up your child before 4:30 than if you pick your child up by 6 o'clock. And in next year, the rate proposal will be phasing out that 4:30 early release, so that everybody will be paying the same daily rate regardless of what time you pick your child up. So there will be adjustments made in the next budget year, but we wanted to phase it in over a 2-year period for the latchkey users.
Is that change being explained to the parents with this rollout of the new rates, so they're aware of what's coming?
It wasn't going to be in this, when we're sending out the letter for the current enrollees, but we would during this, you know, into the new year, we will certainly explain it well in advance.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to adopt the latchkey rate schedule as presented.
I will second.
Any public comment? Commission comments?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to commend our Parks and Rec latchkey program. I am a user, well, my daughter is a user, I pay for her. That program has made such a positive impact on our families' lives. I think these rates are reasonable. I've had some concerns, as Mary and I have talked before, about just enrollment numbers and being able to provide to families the service, because I understand some people, there was some, discussion on a wait list and possibly a lottery. And given our budget study session right before this meeting, we see that there are some issues with the Parks and Rec revenues. So I do hope that this helps address that a little bit. But I also want to comment that I do appreciate the committee and the advisory board, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and the LRB Planning Committee that looked at the rate, but I don't think that we are comparable to public programs. I think we are above and beyond. I just think our program is amazing, and the staff that work here are amazing. So I do support these rates because I think we pay, we get more than what we pay for. That's my opinion as a parent. So this makes sense to me, and I hope that we are able to accommodate all of the families, even though our children population, thankfully, are growing, and Burton is having to add another kindergarten class next year. So appreciate the hard work and the collaboration with Burton Elementary to making this happen for our families.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just a question. Do I understand that our rates are now comparable to adjacent communities?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12 is a matter of consideration of the city entering into an agreement for a one-year term with Great Lakes Fireworks for our fireworks during the 4th of July. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to move that the city of Huntington Woods enter into an agreement for a one-year term to Great Lakes Fireworks Company, 24805 Marine, East Point, Michigan, 48021, based upon the contract specifications to provide for a fireworks display on July 4, 2019, at a cost of $16,000.
Second.
Any public comment? I would note that our Run, Walk, Boom, Walk and Run that takes place just prior to the 4th of July has done a great job of paying for the entire cost of the fireworks over the last several years. Any other comments or questions?
This is an increase of $250 over the 2018 show. That's a pretty good buy.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13 is a matter of authorizing the annual agreement for collection of 2019 summer property taxes for the Berkeley School District.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we authorize the collection of the 2019 summer property taxes for the Berkeley School District.
I second.
Any public comment? Any other comments or questions from the commission? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have two sets of minutes. Do I have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
I second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 15 is warrant number 350. Do I have a motion to approve subject to full audit?
So moved.
Second.
Any public comment? Commission comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our city manager's report.
A couple of comments from some departments. From the Recreation Department, the deadline to purchase your swimming pass and receive a free 4-visit guest pass is Thursday, May 2nd. Kind of felt like it was going to be summer at some point today. So if you were interested in that guest pass, you need to get your swim pass purchased by Thursday. And then on Sunday, May 5th, there are 2 events going on. There's a health and wellness fair at the Gillum Recreation Center sponsored by the Tri-Community Coalition and the cities of Berkeley, Huntington Woods, and Oak Park. There'll be 30 vendors there along with kids' activities. And then when you're done visiting the health and wellness fair, you can go over to the library and participate in the Arts and Garden Board's annual gallery hop, where you purchase ahead of time a $5 wristband, and you could take a city bus to 5 different art galleries or studios in the area, or you can go to the library, get a map, and drive yourself around. I've done it for the last several years. I really enjoyed it.
Really nice.
It's a great opportunity to buy really arty, cool Mother's Day gifts. So if you purchase your wristbands in advance, it's $5, or on Sunday, May 5th, from 1 to 4:30, you can purchase them at the library, and they're $10 the day of the event. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the city manager? All right. Commissioners' remarks. Commissioner Rozell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just offer one comment. We'll be taping another episode of Commissioner's Corner in the very near future, where my guest will be our new city commissioner, Michelle Elders, so that the community can get to know her, and we'll have a sit-down conversation on television. So we'll be taping that soon, and it will be on local government TV in the near future. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I just got back from 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks in the Philippines. And it's nice to be on ground back in Huntington Woods. It's cool here, and I had to wear a coat. The El Nino effect is operating in the Philippines. The rivers have dried up, so the farmers really can't grow rice. Temperature was around 100 a day when it got hot. Instead of going around doing a lot of things outside, the heat was high enough that I had enough brains to stay inside. But you're reminded of the quality of city services when you come home. Clean streets, a safe city, running water, the fact that we do have water. This is a sophisticated city I was in with over 1 million people, but water is a partial crisis. Electricity, because of the need for air conditioning and things like that, was a partial crisis. We forget to appreciate what we have here. If you want to make the world better, start in Huntington Woods and start by doing it yourself. The federal government isn't going to give us money. The state government isn't going to give us money. And for the most part, the state has tied our hands. So when it comes to anything other than bonds for roads and buildings, it becomes extremely difficult. If you don't like what's going on, tell each of us, but also be willing to help in sharing to make the change and be the person you've been waiting for.
Thank you. Commissioner Elder.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick announcement. My next meetup with Michelle is this Saturday, April 27th at 2 to 3 at the Rec Center. So thank you to those who came to the last one, had a good response, and so I'm holding another one and hope to see you there.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind everyone that right here in Huntington Woods, we have our Little League opening day coming up on Saturday, May 4th at 9 o'clock at Burton Fields. If you've never seen this event, it's worth stopping by. It's a great little festive opening to the baseball season here in Huntington Woods. So I hope to see you there, and And if not, at the next commission meeting. That meeting is adjourned.